You know, for literally thousands of years, generals, CEOs, and even football coaches have all turned to one single book for wisdom on how to outthink the competition. That book is Sun Tzu's The Art of War. And it's not really about fighting, it's about winning. More than that, it's about winning smarter. Because as Sun Tzu himself made perfectly clear, the stakes couldn't possibly be any higher.
Yeah, right out of the gate, Sun Tzu does not mince words. This is not a game. He's saying that any kind of conflict has the highest possible stakes. It's not about glory or just proving a point. It is quite literally about survival. It's a path that leads to one of two places: safety or complete and total ruin. And that's exactly why he believed it has to be taken with the absolute utmost seriousness and, above all else, with intelligence.
So to really get our heads around this idea of attack by stratagem, we're going to follow Sun Tzu's own logic. We'll start by seeing why strategy is so important, then look at why just using brute force is a terrible idea. And from there, we'll dive into the real core of his thinking: how to win without fighting, the art of deception, the power of knowledge, and finally, what it really takes to be a supreme strategist.
So, if war is so critical to the state, what's the actual goal? You might think it's all about crushing the enemy, right? But for Sun Tzu, the true objective isn't destruction at all. It's preservation.
This just completely flips the script on what winning means. It's not about leaving a smoking crater where your opponent used to be. No, the most skillful victory, the best possible outcome, is to get what you want: their land, their army, their resources, without actually having to break them. That right there is the foundation of real strategic thinking.
Okay, so if the best kind of victory is a clean one, it only makes sense that the worst methods are the ones that are the messiest and most destructive. Sun Tzu had a very clear idea of what bad strategy looked like. You know, the kind of brute force approach that lazy generals fall back on.
He lays out this whole ranking of strategies, from the absolute best to the worst. And at the very bottom of that list, the single worst policy a commander can possibly choose is
To besiege walled cities. Yep. For Sun Tzu, this is just a strategic nightmare. It's what you do when you've run out of clever ideas. It's a colossal failure of planning that just eats up massive amounts of time, precious resources, and a horrifying number of lives, all to take something that could have been won through much smarter means.
And the cost he describes is just wow. It's brutally specific. He figures that in a siege, you can expect to lose a full third of your soldiers. And even then, the city might still not be yours. It's a terrible, bloody gamble that just drains an army dry. So, if that's the absolute worst policy, what's the best?
Well, this brings us to probably the most famous and most powerful idea in the entire art of war. This is Sun Tzu's radical solution to the massive cost of conflict. This is the idea that defines true mastery. I mean, just let that sink in. The absolute peak of generalship isn't winning some bloody, hard-fought battle. It's making the battle completely unnecessary in the first place. The supreme strategist gets everything they want through planning and positioning and psychological pressure, so much so that the enemy gives up without a single sword ever being drawn.
This list just makes his thinking crystal clear. The absolute best thing you can do: disrupt the enemy's plans before they even start. The next best? Cut them off from their allies and isolate them. Actually attacking their army in the field? That's already a third-rate option. And besieging cities? Dead last. The real battle is fought in the mind, long before the armies ever see each other.
So the big question is, how do you actually do that? How do you disrupt their plans and win without a fight? Well, this brings us to the first practical tool in the strategist's kit: deception.
We've all heard this famous line, right? But what it really means is that war isn't just a contest of strength, it's a contest of perception. Victory goes to whoever can best control what their enemy sees, what they think, and what they believe. If you can make your opponent misjudge reality, you can lead them anywhere you want them to go.
And this isn't just some vague concept. Sun Tzu gives very real, practical examples. Each one of these is about creating a false reality for your opponent. You seem weak when you're actually strong. You look like you're sitting still when you're actually on the move. You use bait. You pretend to be in chaos. You're basically writing a script for your enemy to follow, and that script leads directly to their own defeat. But here's the thing. Deception is powerful, but it's totally useless if you don't know who you're trying to deceive. This brings us to the second pillar of Sun Tzu's stratagem: the absolute critical importance of intelligence and clear-eyed self-assessment. He lays out the outcomes with almost mathematical certainty here. Look at this. If you know your enemy and you know yourself,
you're golden. You don't need to fear the result of 100 battles. But if you only know yourself, it's a coin toss. For every win, you're going to get a loss. And if you're ignorant of both, forget it. You are guaranteed to lose every single time.
And this is such a profound idea. It shows that offense and defense aren't really separate things. They're two sides of the exact same coin. A good attack is born from a secure defense, and a good defense is always planning for the right moment to strike. They're in this constant, dynamic relationship with each other.
So let's bring all these threads together now. Preservation, winning without fighting, deception, and knowledge. What does the commander who has actually mastered all of these principles look like?
And this part is so crucial. The master strategist's first move is not offensive, it's defensive. Before even thinking about how to beat the enemy, they make their own position completely secure, totally unassailable. They eliminate their own weaknesses so there's no way they can be beaten by some random chance.
Once they're totally secure, the strategist doesn't force a fight. They wait. They are patient. See, for them, victory isn't something you create with brute force. It's an opportunity that the enemy provides you, a mistake they make, a moment of weakness. The strategist's job is just to be ready to recognize that moment and seize it.
Now, this sounds like a paradox, I know, but it is the absolute core truth of this entire philosophy. The actual physical battle is just the public confirmation of a victory that was already decided, maybe days, weeks, or even months earlier, all through better planning, better positioning, and better knowledge. The fight itself is really just a formality.
You know, this ancient wisdom isn't just for generals on a battlefield. It's a way to navigate any kind of competition or conflict in business, in negotiations, maybe even in our own personal goals. It forces us to ask, are we just charging ahead, or are we setting the conditions for success before the conflict even begins? It makes you wonder, where could a better strategy let you win without ever having to fight at all?